Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. We begin with the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. We send salutations and peace on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Palestinian people. Can we find anywhere in history where we can compare the sacrifice and the difficulty that came to these people? And what we are witnessing now in 2023. Is there anything? Almost half of the Quran is Qasas al-Awwaliyah. And the majority of it is about Anbiya, prophets. Even though there are some stories like Talut, the story of the youth of the cave, Ashab al-Kahf, that's half of Quran. And then Ibn al-Qayyim says, almost half of Quran is dealing with al-ghayb, the future. So we've got the past, and then we've got the future. Death, day of judgment, paradise, hellfire. So you have half of Quran dealing with the past, and half of Quran is dealing with the future. And then you have a small part, about 500 ayat, about the ahkam, the laws. Fiqh. Because the details of law came in Sunnah. You have the general rules of the Quran, and then the details are in the Sunnah. So Quran is dealing with the past and the future. So the one who is living with Quran has an extended life. So Quran has told us that the history of the world, there's a conflict between good and evil, truth and falsehood. That is the history of the world, earth. It is between the awliya of Allah and the awliya of shaitan. And the results are different. So you have, for example, the story of Hud alayhi salam, Salih alayhi salam, Shu'aib alayhi salam, Nuh alayhi salam. Quran tells us that the non-believers were destroyed and the believers were saved. But it doesn't tell us what happened to them after that. Quran leaves it open. It makes it clear that the enemies of Allah were destroyed and the awliya of Allah were saved. But we don't know what happened after that. What did the followers of Hud alayhi salam do when the rest of the people were destroyed? What happened to them? We don't know. That's one result. And then Quran tells us about Musa alayhi salam. Allah has destroyed his enemies. But then we know what happened to the believers after that. The Banu Israel, they were given tamkeen. They entered into the Holy Land and they were victorious. Even though the victory was not complete. But at least they established the hukum of Allah at one point in time. Not immediately. That was the peace of the era of Banu Israel. And then we know the story of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He had a complete victory. And his enemies were completely destroyed. And we even know the story after that. So these are three different results. However, there's a fourth result. And that's what I want to speak about today. And I believe this is very important for us to learn more about this one. Especially today. And that is the story of Al-Ahzab. Here, you have a believing people. People that believed in Allah. And they followed Islam. And they were living under the rule of a tyrannical king. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentions to us the story in Surah Al-Buruj. When these people became Muslims, the king persecuted them immediately. And he ordered trenches to be prepared, filled with fire. And that every one of the believing people, they need to be given a choice. Either you give up your religion, or you burn them. That was it. Simple. According to the story, these believers all were burnt to death. Every single one. There wasn't anyone left. So here you have a different result. Here, rather than the non-believers being destroyed, the Muslim nation gets burnt, destroyed. And the story of Surah Buruj, we don't know what happened to the king and the followers after. Why is the story so important now? Compare this to the people of Palestine today. Quran is a tarbiyah for the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, and this was in Mecca. Surah Al-Buruj came down in Mecca. Allah is telling the believers here that this may happen to you. Don't think you're so comfortable in Australia. We may have to pay a price for following Islam. You may have to sacrifice something. And you may even need to lose your life. While the enemy is still alive. And they're surviving. They were. So therefore, this is to tell the believer, when you are believing in Allah, you have to be prepared for what is to come. You might be burnt at the stake. You might be killed. You might be thrown in jail. But you have to be ready and prepared. Don't think that the result will always be the victory in dunya. Don't think that the results will always be the same as what happened to Hud alayhi salam and Salih alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It could happen that you could be persecuted in the dunya and you lose. Your family dies, you die. And these are the mu'mineen. So this is to prepare the believer that you're believing in Allah and you're waiting for the reward. Not in this world, in the hereafter. And this was something that was made very clear to Al-Ansar, the helpers. The Prophet ﷺ was in desperate need for help. He had to leave Mecca. He's being persecuted. His followers are being killed. Banu Rabi'a, an Arab tribe from Iraq, very strong. They came to the Prophet ﷺ. They said, we're going to support you, O Prophet of Allah, but we have one condition. If you are victorious, Islam wins. When you die, we want you to transfer power to us. The Prophet ﷺ said, كَإِنَّ الْأَرْضَ لِلَّهِ وَرِثُهَا مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Kingdom belongs to Allah and Allah gives it to whoever He wishes. He did not accept the condition and he refused. Even though he was in great need, he turned down the offer. Why? Because there was some dunya involved. You want something from this dunya? It was involved. Another tribe came and said, we can protect you from all the sides except the Persian side. إِنَّ هَذَا الْأَمْرِ يُحَاطُ مِنْ كُلِّ جِهَاتٍ كَمَا قَالَ صلى الله عليه وسلم. This is a matter that needs to be protected from all sides. You can't just protect Islam from this side and leave it open from behind. No. When Ansar came to the Prophet ﷺ, also Khazraj, the Prophet ﷺ made it clear to them, what do I want? You protect me just like you protect your children, and your families, and your women, and your wealth. You're going to fight for my cause. You might end up sacrificing your life, your children, your family, your wealth. The Ansar said, that's your side of the bargain. What are we going to get? The Prophet ﷺ said, Jannah. One word. You get Jannah. قالوا ربح البيع لا نقيل ولا نستقيل. This is a very profitable deal. We're never going to give it up. Here you have an agreement between Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and Al-Ansar, the people of Medina. And the contract is very clear. You sacrifice everything you have. And you don't expect anything in this world. You expect something in the Akhirah. What is the story of Ahl al-Qurud? Surah Al-Buruj. Why is it important now? 2023, while this Palestine conflict is going on. Let me start with a hadith. There's a hadith in Sahih Muslim. And many of the scholars refer to this story of the Surah Buruj. The Prophet ﷺ says in Muslim, there is a king, and he had a sorcerer. He had a sorcerer, magician. And this magician was growing old in age. So he told the king, it's about time that you appoint an apprentice to learn the trade of magic, so he can help me. So he can take up this responsibility, because I'm getting old in age. So they chose for the king one of the brightest young men in that place. Very bright young man. He became the student of the sorcerer of the king. The best. The brightest. This young man would leave in the morning to study under the magician. On his way, he passed near a monastery. And he heard the verses coming out. So he was curious. So he went in to investigate. And he found that this was a Muslim group. They were Christians that were following Isa ibn Maryam, who were actually following the true teachings of Isa ibn Maryam, that Allah is one, I'm not God. So he happened to attend the sermon that was delivered by the priest. He was very impressed. It's like someone coming into a khutbah. So every day in the morning, he would pass next to the monastery, and then he would study a few hours there under the priest. And when he gets to the sorcerer says, "You're late," so he would beat him up. And then on his way back, he would pass by the monastery. So his parents would beat him up when he got home. "You're late." So he would get beaten up 2 times. So he told the priest, "What should I do?" So the priest said, "In the morning when you visit me and you go to the sorcerer, just say my family delayed me. And when you go back to your family at night, tell them that the sorcerer delayed me. That way you won't get beat up." So he did that. And so he was studying both things. Sorcery, which is haram, and then he was studying Islam, the original religion of Allah. Now once there came a beast in the middle of the city, and everyone in there failed. The military failed. The police failed. So the young man went there, and he said, "This day I will determine who is on the right path, the sorcerer or the priest. I want to know." So he picked up a rock, and he said, "Oh Allah, if the religion of the priest is more beloved to you than the religion of the sorcerer, then kill this huge beast." And he threw the rock, and the animal just fell down dead. So that was a karama, miracle, at the hands of a non-prophet. Miracle. The young man went to the priest and told him what happened. Now remember, imagine in the middle of Coins Cook, a massive beast, like a dragon-looking thing, comes out, and the military is failing, the police is failing, and a little kid comes and throws a stone and kills. What do you think the people around that kid will say? Because the military failed, the nukes failed, all of the things failed, and now this child brought a stone. So they immediately turned to him for what? Guidance. They turned to him for guidance. Now, the child, being a child, he went straight back to the priest, who he learned everything from. And he told him the story. This is what happened to me in the marketplace. So now the priest told him that you just performed a karam, a miracle. And now that you have reached this high level of Iman, oh my son, on this day you have become superior to me. I'm the Imam, but you're superior to me. You, Allah has fulfilled the karama on your hands. You have a higher status than me in Allah's eyes. And then he said, now you will be tested. Now you will be tested. You will definitely be tested now. If you have reached this high level of being close to Allah, Allah will test you. And I want to stop here for a moment. If a Muslim makes the claim, you make the claim, in Australia, in UK, in USA, that you are a believer, that you are mu'mineen, that claim must be verified. If you make that claim with your mouth, I'm Muslim, be assured that Allah will verify that claim. He'll test you. In general, the Muslim Ummah, during the past decades, for example, in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, the predominant banner that existed was communism, socialism, nationalism, secularism, feminism, all these isms. So people were not tested. However, now, the predominant call in the Ummah is what? La ilaha illallah. Now Muslims around the world are saying La ilaha illallah. Non-Muslims are saying La ilaha illallah. And they're making it public. They're using social media and the internet and they are spreading Islam. We have gotten a lot of success in our da'wah. Am hasibtum, am hashab al-nas, an yutraku amanna fahum la yuftarun. Do the people think that you will claim to be a believer without Allah verifying your claim? Fitna. You will have to go through trials. So that Allah Azza wa Jal will know who's truthful and who's lying. Who's a real Muslim and who's not. Who's a real Muslim and who's a hypocrite. Just like when you go through college or university, school of surgery, and you go out and tell the world, I'm a surgeon, you're going to be tested. This will put you through tests. When someone comes to you with a hand cut off in the hospital, it will come in a way, it will determine who you are. Are you a failing surgeon or are you a passing surgeon? There are also tests that will take care of the fine-tuning to tell if you're an A student or a B student or a C student. And there are going to be some questions on the exam to see if you're A plus or A minus. This is a test. The same thing Allah will do for all of us Muslims, whether you're a mu'min or a munafiq. What status of Iman do you have? Because the population of Jannah is like a pyramid. You have a lot of people on the lower levels, but then it narrows. Until when you have on top of the Jannah, where you have only one place, and that is for who? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it narrows. You have a lot of people in Jannah in the lower levels, and then it decreases and decreases and decreases until you get to the peak. This is called al-wasila. That is only for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there will be tests to place you where in Jannah? In these levels of Jannah. So the priest told the young man, you'll be tested. You're doing miracles, you're going to be tested. And if that happens, do not disclose my name. Do not tell him that I am the one that taught you this religion. Now, you might be thinking, what a cowardly imam. He's telling the young man, what? Don't tell them my name. He's afraid. He's telling the young man, don't give up my name. Don't disclose the story of who taught you this real religion. But you will recognize as I go on with the story who this imam was. This young man, this young boy, was now performing miracles. So he was healing the blind. Blind people would come and he would heal them. Deaf people would be able to hear again. Leprosy, he was able to cure them. So the king had a friend. He was blind. From birth, he was blind. So he heard about this young man who heals and does miracles. So he went to him and he said, I will pay all of my wealth as long as you give me back my eyes. So the young man said, it is not you who cures or me. Allah cures. And I'll make dua for you. But you have to believe in Allah first. So he believed in Allah and he was cured. He could see again. So the next day he walked in and he saw the king. And the king said, you can see? Who cured you? He said, Allah. You have a Lord other than me? Allah is my Lord and your Lord. So the king tortured this blind man who became a person that could see, until he disclosed that it was the young man who cured me and gave him dawah. So now they brought the young man in. And he said, where did you get this from? This deen. So he refused to give up the name of the priest, but then they tortured him and punished him. He buckled and he gave up the name of the imam, the priest. So now they brought the priest, the imam, that taught him the religion. So since the priest was the one that started it all, the root cause, they said to the priest, you either give up your religion, or we will cut you in half. So they brought a saw, and they put it over his head. So this priest, who told the young man earlier, out of wisdom, that don't give up my name, because then the dawah will stop. But now when things became serious, he's in the court and there's a knife above him, and the king is about to kill him, execute him. He refused to give up his religion. So they cut his head into 2 pieces. But that did not make him give up his religion. And they did the same with the friend of the king who was blind and he became able to see. He refused to give up his iman. So now they're left with who? The young boy. So the king told some of his soldiers, He's a young boy, so I can't execute him in front of anyone. So they told him, take him up the mountain and throw him off. So they took him up the mountain. So he made dua. Ya Allah, akfini bima shit. Oh Allah, take care of these soldiers the way you want. He was at the top of the cliff, they were about to push him off. So the mountain shook, and all of the soldiers fell off the cliff except the young man. They're all dead. Now what does the young man do? He's free now. He goes straight back to the king. The king asked, where are the soldiers? They said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala disposed of them. So, subhanAllah, logically thinking, would you go back to the king? Would you go back to the person who's just trying to kill you? Now remember, there's not many Muslims or people that are believing in the faith of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at this time in the world. So there was only 3, and he killed 2 of them, there's 1 left. Right? He's alone. This young boy is alone. So instead of going back home or running away to some place, he goes back to this root cause of the conflict, the king. He walks in. The king says, where are the soldiers? Allah is taking care of them. Now obviously, the king has a lot of soldiers, disposable soldiers. So what does he do? Gets a new group of soldiers, he says, take them in a boat and go to the middle of the ocean and just dump them. So they did that. And he made the same dua. Allahumma akfini bima shit. Oh Allah, take care of them the way you want. So the boat capsized, and they all drowned, and he survived. And again, he went to the king. Notice that the young man keeps going back to the king. He doesn't want to protect himself. He wants to protect his da'wah. He wants to protect his deen. When are you going to believe in? He was doing da'wah to the king. When are you going to believe, O king? So the king was now going to round up a new group of soldiers. But then the young man said, stop. Listen, you're not going to be able to kill me. You won't. Because Allah is intervening. Unless you do what I tell you. I'm going to give you a recipe. Gather all of your kingdom, all of the people in your nation. Bring them all together. Tie me up to a tree. And you take an arrow and you say, Bismillah. And then and only then, you'll be able to kill me. And shoot it at me. So the young man gave the king the prescription of his death. Young man. So the king swallowed the bait. Said, fine. So he gathered all of the nation. And in front of everyone, he said, Bismillah Rabbul Ghalam. I say, in the name of the Lord of this boy. And the arrow hit him on the head, and he died on the spot. So this young man gave up his life. Why did he do it? Why did he tell the king the prescription of his own death? The reason he did it is because of what happened next. When the people saw this, young man was not being killed by a king. When the arrow was fired in the name of Allah, he survived every other attempt except when it was said in the name of this boy and his Lord. They all became Muslim on the spot. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So now the advisors of the king are saying, what you were afraid of happened. The whole point was killing the young man was to eradicate Islam. And now here we are dealing with the whole Ummah. Our entire kingdom is Muslim. Except for the king and his army. And by the way, to make you understand, I was telling this to the young children that I teach from the ages of 3 all the way to 15 and above, that the biggest miracle is when everyone is trying to eradicate a religion. That's how you know it's true. Everyone is trying to eradicate a religion, a people, and they just keep growing. Look at what happened in France when they banned the hijab, which is fundamentally breaking a law for a woman in Islam. Islam quadrupled in that time. Look at what is happening around the world while the Palestinians are getting massacred. Islam has increased by a factor of 6. One of the Imams I was speaking to just before this, he said, a protester, a random person, came in and he wanted to accept and enter into the fold of Islam. And he told me a little bit about the story. how is it possible that this religion is not the truth when this happens every single time someone tries to destroy the religion? This is the biggest proof. The biggest proof that Islam is haq. So the king immediately ordered the soldiers to dig trenches and push the people towards the trenches, which is loaded with firewood. And anyone who refuses to give up their Iman, throw them in the fire. Now you think what's happening in Palestine is bad. Now this is even worse. So now the king, president, the leader, fearless leader, he digs trenches and he is throwing people into it one by one. And he asks them only one question before they die. So right now there's a lot of red tape and what the news says and what this spokesman says and that spokesman says. There's a lot of red tape. But it's not this clear. But at that time it was this clear. Either you give up your religion or we throw you in the trench. So they say, I'm not going to give up my religion. Dead. Next person. Are you going to give up your religion? No. Dead. Next person. Are you going to give up your religion? No. Dead. Now imagine you get video footage, social media footage of this. That's pretty clear. Either you give up your religion or you die. And they would see the person before them burned to death. So there was a mother who was walking towards the fire with her infant in her arms. Remember, this is in Quran. And imagine how difficult that is. A mother with an infant. So while she was marching towards her death to the fire, Rasulullah ﷺ says she hesitated. She stopped for a while. Allah Azza wa Jal made the infant speak. Ya Ummah asbiri fa innaki ala al-haq. Oh my mother, be patient and go on because this is the truth. Now miracles are happening even to the people. And this has been reported of the people in Palestine reporting miracle after miracle. One of the ones that I actually verified myself from some of my friends in Jordan, I used to live in Jordan, was that a whole group of IDF soldiers were marching to come over and start their ground assault. And all of their feet just stopped working. And the feet, when they took off the boots, became deformed. The bones intertwined between each other. And subhanallah, these are things that are happening today, in 2023, miraculous events to average people, average Muslims. Just like the mother with the infant. So she jumped into the fire with her infant and they died. Now this is the story of Surah Al-Buruj. A surah that I recite. In the world, they lost. The people lost. They're all dead. They were defeated. And the king won. Correct? What does Allah say about this? Now to eliminate this thought, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala closes the story and says, Allah says, ذَلِكَ الْفَوْزُ الْكَبِيرُ. This is the great victory. Why on earth is Allah calling this a victory? They died. All the Muslims died. It is not what happens to you in dunya that constitutes victory. Your house, your car, your women. This is a temporary place. Victory is your ability to remain steadfast on Iman until your last moment. That is victory. Victory is the outcome of the battle between you and your greatest enemy, yourself. Shaitan, hawa, desires, the world, dunya. When you win these battles, when you remain steadfast on Islam until the last moment, they won and the king lost. And this is an important lesson for us to learn today. When you see the people of Palestine being massacred, being butchered, any one of us could go through this situation. Maybe not as dramatic, being bombed 24/7. But only Allah knows what's going to happen in Australia in 50 years. We are a minority in this country. Only Allah knows what's going to happen to the Muslims in the UK, in Europe, in France, in India, in Pakistan, in Russia, in Ukraine. What's going to happen with them? The future is unknown. Do you know the future? Only Allah knows. But the lesson you need to learn is that victory is not that you save your life and you give up your religion and you compromise. Victory is in remaining in the straight path of Allah, Sirat al-Mustaqim, even if you have to pay the ultimate price, your death. That is a very important lesson for us to learn today. Our survival is a survival in the eyes of Allah, how steadfast you are on this faith, people. Honestly. The outcome does not matter. You Muslims don't have to win. Eventually we know that the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ will succeed. That's 100%. And maybe you don't get to see it. There'll be a lot of sacrifices along the way. So we have to be prepared. Allah Azza wa Jal might put you in a situation, me in a situation, where we have the choice of protecting our religion and paying something, sacrificing something, or protecting your life and giving up your religion. Sell out. You actually don't know what your reaction is going to be until you get to that time. When you have been waiting for your immigration for the last 9 years, studying as a student in this country, and now you are faced with an official from the immigration authority telling you that if you basically give up your deen and shave off your beard, you are going to get citizenship on the spot. You can talk about it, but when you're there in that room and nobody else is there, how will you react? Nobody will know. That is going to show the Iman that is there within your hearts. That's going to show it. The ones who didn't have Iman before will not be able to pass in that trial. In other words, let me make this very clear. You cannot raise your Iman when Dajjal is already here. It's too late. There's nothing you can do. If Dajjal comes, you can't raise your Iman. So tonight, actually today, I'm going to announce, you're going to be paid. This is the test. You want to know how much Iman you have? Look into this. I announce that tomorrow, whoever comes to Salat al-Fajr is going to get $100 green bill from me. Personally. You can come next Jummah, give me your certificate of attending Fajr, signed off by the Imam of that masjid, and I will give you $100 for every day that you attended Fajr Salah in a nearby. Now you get this announcement, and it's true. This guy, I think he can actually do it. He can actually pay these guys. So now what happens the next day? Tomorrow morning, what happens? The masjid is full. $100, that's quite a bit, even for Australia. طيب. Yani, if $100 Australian dollars, it makes or breaks your attendance of one prayer, it's going to bring you to Fajr. What about when fitan come? Dajjal, the Antichrist, is given powers by Allah. Isa ibn Maryam descends down, knocks on your door and asks you to join him. Don't think that I'm going to be confident. You should always ask Allah for help. Tabat. The word qalb in Arabic comes from taqallub. Something that is continuously changing. When you have a pot and you have water that's boiling, you know the lid? The water is going upside down. The lid is rattling. That is the state of our hearts. One of the Sahaba came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, I have committed nifaq, hypocrisy. The Prophet ﷺ said, why do you say that? Because when I'm with you, when I'm in the khutbah, when I'm in front of you, I go home and I play with my family and my Iman goes down. Like this. But then when I'm in front of you, it increases. The Prophet ﷺ said, that's normal. You haven't committed hypocrisy. The Prophet ﷺ said, if you remain in the same state that you have with me when I'm in front of you, the angels would come and shake your hands in the streets. But that's impossible. Sa'a wa sa'a. It's an up and down thing. High portions of Iman, low portions of Iman. That's normal. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to get this willingness to sacrifice in our lives. Sometimes it's jail. Sometimes it's death. The Prophet ﷺ was offered wealth, money, women, power. And sometimes the trials that come, the trials of ease are sometimes more difficult than the trials of difficulty. What you are going through now, in Australia, in US, in UK, sometimes when you're in times of ease, that trial is more difficult than when you're in times of difficulty. Because in times of difficulty, it's pretty clear what I'm supposed to do. But sometimes when you're in ease, when everything's going well, business is going well, money is coming in, immigration's done, cars are parked, everything is looking good. That is also a test. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests people in different ways. Sometimes He tests them with health, sometimes with poverty, sometimes in illness. Sometimes it comes in different ways and forms. But we need in the future is tabat, steadfastness, and the willingness to sacrifice whatever it takes to keep our deen for the religion of Allah. Think about yourself. You do the work, and you expect the payment after you're done. You don't ask for it now. You're working for Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah is the one that controls the results. You don't. There is no king, there is no president, there is no leader that controls the results of any conflict. There is only Allah, He controls everything. Remember this. This is what we believe. This will give us strength in this time. The take-home message is only two. Number one, build your Iman. Build your Iman. In the face of this difficulty happening to our Muslim brothers today, compare it to the Quranic example of Surah Al-Buruj, the people of Ukhdud, the people of the trench. Now is the time for you and me to build our Iman before we're tried. We're put into a trial. Use this opportunity to get yourself, your family, your friends to become close to Allah. Stop being on the fence about issues of Islam. Start following the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Make your way towards Jannah. Start dressing the part. Start acting the part. Start improving. Make sure you don't make compromises in your business, in your wealth, in your health. Haram is clear, halal is clear. Between is the gray areas. Try and stay away from the gray areas. It's very simple. You may only start with one prayer in the masjid. You may only start with Jummah. Slowly and gradually start lifting more weights spiritually. You can do 5 prayers, 10 prayers, all of them in the congregational mosque that's close to your house. Every single Jummah is attended. You make sure you take a day off on Friday to make sure you get here. This is how you build Iman. Second, make sure you learn and understand that you as a Muslim will be tested. If you want to get into Jannah, there is no way that you will be able to get into Jannah without sacrifice. Sacrifice of your house, sacrifice of your time, sacrifice of your wealth, sacrifice of your own body, sacrifice of your soul. The example of our brothers and sisters suffering is in front of you. Use that to build your Iman and the ability for you to sacrifice when your time comes. This is the message that I leave you with. وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى سَيِّدِنَا مُحَمَّدٍ وَعَلَى آلِهِ وَصَحْبِهِ وَسَلَّمَ.